Okay, so it was May of this year, and I was walking with my dogs, as usual, and it was a sunny day in London that is not happening very often. I'm from Italy, so when there is sun in London, it's always great. And suddenly, I was walking, and I started to receive a lot of notification. My iWatch starts to literally vibrate for like 5 minutes in a row, and it's quite unusual for a Saturday morning. And what happened at the end when I discovered it was, oh my God, let's see if it works. Okay, let's do this. My computer freeze. Nice. That's a good start. Yeah, we are. And I received this, there was this thread made by Dan around micro-frontends. And it's been a while that I'm working on it. It's like roughly 3 years that I'm working on micro-frontends. And the thread was pretty interesting. There were a lot of opinionated people that were sharing their experience, but there were a lot of questions, a lot of misconceptions. And I thought it was, let's say, quite a few, there was a good opportunity to share, let's say, my point of view on the topic. And a lot of people were asking me to discuss this topic. They would like to have my point of view. So I was a little bit puzzled because every minute there were new notifications, new people was writing about that. It was quite crazy. So what I decided to do during that weekend is writing a blog post instead of replying in few lines on Twitter that is available on Medium, and basically trying to take like the key part and answer the questions that were related on this. So it went pretty well, but the reality was that I spent like the last 6 months trying to unwind my brain and say, okay, so Luca, you like, it's 3 years that you're working on this, but you need to find a way to explain properly to the people, because after that that post, I started to do like several webinars and talks and so on. So it was like a huge amount of work, and every time I was seeing that I was getting clearer and clearer on what I was explaining. My name is Luca. I'm a Vice President of Architecture at DAZN. I'm a Google developer expert and the London Javascript community manager. So let's start with this. So today we're going to talk about architecture precisely. And if we need to start with the definition of architecture, because often I see that there is misconception between designing and architecting. So software architecture is how Martin Fowler describes those decisions that are both important and hard to change. And those are very, very key, because when we understand this, it means that we are, let's say, when we understand this, it's easier than to think about the key part of an architecture. But let's go to the crux of the topic. So what is a micro-frontend? So a micro-frontend is basically the idea of taking what we call a monolith in a single-page application, for instance, and trying to break it up in small parts. Mainly because if we think about other architectures that are available there on the backend world, microservices, for instance, is a good idea, that is breaking apart like a complex monolith and complex data layer in order to provide, let's say, a lighter way and an easier way to break a complex problem in small tasks. So if we think about the principle around micro-frontends, we can think about a few of them. So the first one is the modeling around the business domain, like microservices. So usually a micro-frontend should be designed around what is a business domain. And that's very important because it will allow you to create an end-to-end autonomy between teams that will be able to create the micro-frontend, the microservices, and define the infrastructure. So end-to-end, they can take some decision around that stack. It's talking also another principle is decentralization. So there isn't anymore a core team that is deciding everything. It doesn't work anymore in that way. Now, in order to scale up your teams, you need to decentralize. So give autonomy to the people. And in order to do that, you need to find the right boundaries. Because when you start to have a lot of external dependency between teams, it means that there is something that is problematical of how you design your architecture. We need a culture of automation. Micro-frontends are not coming for free. It's not like you have a single-page application and you ship in your S3 bucket or web application. It doesn't work that way. So you need really to nail the CI and CD inside your application. You need to deploy independently. There isn't any, so when you identify micro-frontend, you have the possibility to deploy a specific micro-frontend without deploying the entire application. And that de-risks a lot the possible issues that you can have in production. That is very good practice. So you should hide implementation details, because the reality is when you have communication between components that are maybe made by another team, you should have like a API contract first design, where you define the contract and you stick with that, because potentially that contract, if it's changed or it's not compatible, could affect multiple teams. And in particular, if you are in a distributed teams situation, it could be a problem. Last but not least, you have the new dimension. You have the isolate failure dimension. So if up to now we ship our code in a unique, in one go with your single-page application, now we have multiple parts of your application that has to be loaded. And therefore, if you, in particular, if your users are in mobility and they have like a flaky connection, it could be that certain times you need to deal with errors that you didn't dealt with that before. So, as I said, I tried to unwind my brain around this, and I tried to figure out what are the key architectural decisions that we need to make when we start this micro-frontend project. And I think today, for the first time, I have something compelling to tell. So, usually when you start a project micro-frontend, you have 4 key things that you have to take care of, architecturally speaking. You have to define a micro-frontend. You have to compose a micro-frontend, you have to route between micro-frontends, and you need to take care of how the micro-frontends communicate together. So let's see how it works. So first thing first, definition, how you define a micro-frontend. We can have, let's say, how we call a horizontal split of our micro-frontends. That could be, let's say, we take a view and we split in multiple parts, and that's a possibility. That is not to be confused by components. Components, let's say, are part of the micro-frontend, but in this case, it's like let's say a bunch of business logic together with some components and UI that reflect a specific area of the application. Or you can slice vertically. So in this case, for instance, in the vertical slicing, you can see immediately that it's more talking about the business language. So we don't have the header and footer. There is no business value. The header and footer by itself is the whole entirety. To slice vertically, we're talking about landing page, we're talking about authentication, we're talking about catalog. The second thing is how we compose. So there are 3 ways to compose micro-frontends. So the first one is client side. So we have our micro-frontends on origin. That could be either an S3 bucket or application server, doesn't matter. Usually they pass through a CDN, so you don't have to do many round trips to origin every time. And then the client is composing. How they compose, it could be either with an app shell that is loading different micro-frontends, or just one micro-frontend per time. Or it could be via iframes. It could be through transclusion with client-side inclusion. So there are several ways that you can do that. The second way is through the edge. There is a standard called edge sign include. We're basically creating this language that is available on the CDN, and you create some placeholder, and the placeholder and the CDN is taking those placeholders every time that the user is invoking a micro-frontend and replacing it with real code. That's another option. Third option is application server. So at the application server, you start to compose everything, and then you ship the final page to the client. So in that case, usually you can use like HTML fragments or components of a specific framework and put everything together, pass through a CDN in order to cache it, and ship to the client. Then the third part is routing. So how you pass from one area to another one. So routing in the client-side approach is could happen at the CDN level. If you're using Lambda the edge, for instance, in AWS or any other CDN that provides you computation on the edge. It could be client-side. In the case that you have like a configuration inside your client that is redirecting, let's say, based on the state of the user in authentication or not authenticated area of your final application. In the case of the edge, it can happen only on the edge because the edge is the only one, so the CDN is the only one that knows what has to load and how, so the routing is happening through URL on the CDN level. And the last one is at origin. So in the origin, you have an application server, and there you can run all the logic you need in order to route and serve satisfies at your own will. So the last bit is communication. If we go with the micro-frontend communication that is happening on let's say, horizontal slicing between different micro-frontends, you need to think how you want to communicate between them. So the first one could be between using an event emitter. It could be using custom events, that is standard nowadays. And usually what you do, you inject inside those micro-frontends those things, but the most important thing we said before, they have to be deployed independently, therefore they cannot be aware of how the page is composed. So the most important thing is that you have a way to decouple those micro-frontends in the same page in order to communicate together and not be aware how the hierarchy is. But then you have another problem. That is, okay, how I move from one view to another one, how I communicate shared content. So there, in this case, you have two options, and that is valid for vertical or for the vertical approach as well as a horizontal approach. You can use classic URL with query strings, the parameter, and then the other second micro-content is loaded. We'll take these IDs or values and do a round trip to the server for understanding what it has to load. Or you can do locally with web storage, or you can use both. The reality is, let's say, the communication with micro-contents, in particular if you're working with horizontal micro-contents, could be non-trivial, because you need to have an agreement in principle with all the teams, and it's not always possible. What I want to pass here, the message, is that there isn't right or wrong, but it's the context that defines this. And that's very, very important, because you have to bear in mind that the environment where you work, the people that you're working with, the skills of the people, the way, the deadline that you have to meet, how long you need to maintain a specific project, define which decision you're taking. There isn't anymore one solution that fits all, because otherwise you risk just to have an approach that it is good, but it will never be the best. And that's what we're trying to aim here. We need to understand deeply where we are working, because when we take those decisions, those architectural decisions, it has to be crystal clear for everyone that we are doing this in this way for a specific context. And therefore, in another context, could make total sense using a completely different approach. I can give you an example. Currently, I'm talking with a lot of people that are approaching micro-frontends in general. One of the recent ones that I found is SAP, that create framework called Luigi, and they're using iframes for wrapping their micro-frontend. I'm not totally against that. I'm not a big fan of iframes, but I'm not totally against it either. But in their approach, in their case, where they can decide where they want to ship this micro-frontend, because it's an enterprise application that is running inside a browser, and potentially a specific type of browser, it causes less problem and provides a lot of benefit for them. And it currently is used, for instance, by many departments in SAP. In our approach, where I work, we are using an app shell, because in that case, we have a situation where we have multiple devices that we have to target with different APIs for writing there. And the reality is, we need to have something that will decouple and make unaware the micro-contents in which device they are working. So therefore, we created, let's say, an app shell that will take care about the different permutation of devices, and that will load different micro-contents. And every time the context is driving your decision, all the things that I just showed you are a key part of what you need to do in order to kick off a micro-content project. Obviously, there are other challenges. So the other question after you decide the first four thing is, okay, how you share code and components. Because that is another thing. There are situations where, or approaches where you can share some code, or others that sharing code could be it couldn't provide the same benefit that you can have on a single page application. Then design consistency. How do you introduce a design system in Micro-frontend? How to make sure that all the teams that are working on this project provide the right consistency. The button looks like in the same way. And also there, you need to understand where you want to stop. In the case of design system, for instance, usually you start with having some design tokens, and in design tokens, you start to work with them, and you have like some JSON, and then you can start from the JSON to translate on something else. That could be a concrete component, and then you need to understand, okay, how much logic I put inside the component. Because all those questions are, let's say, something that you need to think upfront. You cannot just go and start with the development straight away, because at some point you will find them, and it's way more complicated further down the line taking those decisions. Then technology agnostic is another characteristic of micro-frontends. Do you want to use it or not? There are some people that were, let's say, complaining on the fact that you can have like multiple vendors on the same page. I agree, it's not the best way to implement that. And for instance, we are not doing it in the company where I'm working for. But it's an option. So do you want to keep the technology agnostic, or do you want to share the same framework with all the micro-frontends? Is this possible? It's not, let's say, something that is difficult. And if you think about that, technically speaking, also in a single page application, you have multiple frameworks. But you don't do that because it's an off button. So the other thing is dependency management. How do you manage the dependency? And each single of those three things, so the composition is quite critical here. If you do on the client side, or if you do on edge side, or if you do on the back end, the dependency management is different. And all those 5 decisions are completely driven from the first 4 that I described at the beginning. When you have those 4 nails, those will come quite easily in cascade. Oh, yeah, sorry. Organization impact. That's another important one. Remember that every time that you decide any of those, considering you are working hopefully in a distributed teams, or also collocated teams, but with multiple teams on the same project, the risk that you have is that all those decisions could impact also the organization structure. We need to make aware that every time that you change something on the architecture, there could be also some changes that could impact the organization. So you need to be smart enough and fluid in the way how then you reorganize the organization. We did it. In a company pretty large, we reorganized our company in order to support this architecture. Obviously, micro-frontends are not a silver bullet. Single-page applications, server-side rendering one, are definitely a valid option. I'm not here advocating, oh yeah, from now on everyone is doing a micro-frontend. What I'm advocating here is that we have finally a different option and a new option that will allow us to scale like never before. Because at the beginning, we had to coordinate many developers across the same code base with decisions that maybe are pretty old and made a year ago, 2 years ago, and so on. And everyone has to stick with them, otherwise there is no cohesive design of our code. But in reality, with micro-frontends, we can use them for replacing old monolith or legacy software. We can reuse them. We can use them for creating new application, and we can use for scaling our software and our organization, because those are going together. So again, I'm not saying tomorrow go with micro-frontends only, but what I'm saying is there is a new tool and architecture that we can leverage from now on. Thank you very much.